And here is Kyle Nicolas, new pitching prospect with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, it pains me to say it. I was so pumped when the Marlins took you. It was so cool to see you go from, Katuitt, where I got to watch you pitch day in and day out, and then over to the Marlins. But a really good opportunity for you in Pittsburgh, and the season's getting closer. And Kyle, I'm sure you got to be amped up to get started this year after the great finish last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. But yeah, man, I'm getting excited, ready to get back out there for year 2 and new home, new place, new teammates. So always just got to go out there and control what you can control. Obviously, some things happen, but I'm just excited to go out and pitch again.
Yeah, and I mean, last year, there's a reason why, the Pirates end up asking for you in a deal. When the Marlins are looking to satisfy their catching spot, it's because you pitched really well down the stretch, starting in high A and then finishing strong in double A. I talked to you early in the season out in South Bend when I went out there to catch a series. And one thing you said to me is, you're like, yeah, just – I'm not really where I want to be velo wise. I want to have a little bit more life there. And that came not long after that started to show up. And that was a big difference, at least from on my side of things. I was watching start for start. You just started blowing it by guys a bit more. And it seemed like you just kind of got back into that game shape as the season endured after, no 2020. And it seemed like that was a common thing. Was that part of the success as you started to get better and better? Was it just feeling like your stuff was kind of back to the Kyle Nicolas stuff that you've always had?
Right. Yeah. I would agree with that. Definitely the fastball started playing better. Not only because, I was kind of up and down with velo, like you said, started off the year throwing hard, kind of dipped down, then went back up, and then kind of finished kind of lower velo on the fastball. But honestly, the biggest thing for me was just using all my pitches more. That just helped my fastball play that much better. I was kind of leaning heavily on the fastball there for like the first couple months, throwing it like 70% of the time. And, once hitters see that in the scouting report, they know it's coming. I know I'm throwing it. So, the margin for error when both sides are like knowing what's going on, it's pretty small. So, I kind of learned. It was just a learning process, learning to mix pitches and when to mix pitches and when to go with my heater. So that was definitely a big stepping stone for me this year and helped the fastball play more for sure.
And in double A, high A is tough, but the double A talent this year, especially with no 2020 season, and I think people that listen to the podcast are probably sick of me saying it, but it's something I've always emphasized because on both sides, right? The offensive prospects that you were facing day in and day out, there's a lot of quality there, especially when you get to some teams like the Rays, where it seems like nobody strikes out. I know like Jonathan Aranda, for example, is a guy that he's just impossible to get out, right? Like his bat to ball skills, but Austin Shenton, Xavier Edwards, just scrappy, good hitters that will make you work. And that goes across to some other teams in the league that you had to face a lot too. How do you kind of change things up against guys that you start to see more and more? Because that's the crazy thing about the minors, especially last year, is you were seeing 6-game series. So you were almost guaranteed, to see that team to pitch sometimes maybe even twice in the series if it lined up, unfortunately, for you. How did you do that and mix up, and how did that factor into the sequencing and getting guys out there while also still trying to trust your best pitch, which I would say is still that fastball that can have so much life?
Yeah, I would definitely say, when you make that jump, it's all about just executing better. Hopefully you're going to see a lot of the guys for a long time. And, as you work your way through the minor leagues. So everyone knows what you got, basically. You know what you have, but it's also the day-to-day. So one day I'll be like, I'm out there in the bullpen, curveball doesn't feel great. I might lean heavier on my slider. Or, fastball, I'm feeling a good glove side, but not too much arm side. I'm going to lean heavy on that side. So honestly, it's just working with what you have that day. But being able to execute is definitely the biggest thing. that I saw, and I did a better job at double A than high A at doing that. Um, but yeah, the talent was there for sure, and those are the toughest guys. Like you're talking about the Rays, that team, like the guys that aren't just the free swingers that'll fight off pitches to wait till they get their pitch. I mean, those are just the most annoying guys to pitch to. But every good team has them. That's what makes them a good hitter. So, you just got to be better than them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and watching those starts, man, I could see you like making great pitches. Sometimes you execute a great pitch, you set it up perfectly, and these guys some of them are still just fouling it off. Same thing with
Yeah.
Max Meyer, same thing with anybody on the mound. And when that happens, I mean, that's got to be a little bit demoralizing as a pitcher, right? Like you execute it perfectly and they spoil it. Yeah, how do you kind of fight through that on the mound, right? Because once you show them every pitch, that's advantage hitter, of course.
Right.
What's the pitcher mentality there? Do you go back to the express and just try and blow it by them? I mean, what's really the thought there when they've seen everything already, and you got to go back in there and get after them?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like you say, you throw that, you're like, oh, it felt good, and then you see him just fight it off, and you're like, dang, like that one, I felt like I was gonna get him there. But honestly, it's just seeing the hitter's reaction and what their swing's looking like. So if they're late on it, whatever pitch it is, you have options after that. And it's all just part of the process kind of thing. Like throughout the game, that's kind of what I like as like being a starter. You kind of have this whole game inside the game where it's like, I'm going to show them this at bat. If I think I can get through this at bat with just this pitch or these two pitches, that'll help me out later in the game. So that's what I enjoy. It's just the battles, and you definitely get a lot of them.
What would you say the biggest jump was and biggest adjustment from high A to double A? I mean, you started, like you said, you had a little bit of that like good start with the velo, it dropped off a little bit, and then you really were just dealing at the end of high A with a lot of momentum going into double A. What was the big jump or adjustment for you making that jump from high A to double A in terms of just making those adjustments?
For me, it was just trusting all my pitches. I started throwing my curveball a lot more, started throwing my slider a lot more, my changeup too. I started throwing it a little more. I still didn't throw it very much, but just working all the pitches in and being able to land them for strikes, being able to throw them in the dirt, make them look like a strike for a long time. And honestly, for me, for my changeup, it was just throwing it, because after like 2.5 months, hitters were just writing it off like he's not even going to throw it. So once I throw it, it was like an auto take at that point. I was like, all right, I can like steal one here, maybe steal one later. So for me, it was just mixing all my pitches and knowing when to throw them. And, the pitching coaches that I had in Beloit and in Pensacola really helped me with that. Just working through that, that phase where I was just throwing off fastballs and just letting me know like, hey, like you got to change, like this has to change. You have to throw all your pitches at any time. So, I kind of really bought into that. I knew I had to do that, but when I'm on the mound and I see fastball get put down, I'm like, I like my fastball a lot. So, it's not a terrible option, but like at some point hitters they get paid to play the game too. So, they're going to catch one and that when that happens, it's like, dang, like maybe I should have thrown something else there, or just stuff like that. But just mixing all my pitches, finding the right time to throw them, that really led to my success for like the second half of the year.
Yeah, well, something that really stands out to me is the home runs and how it dropped a lot in terms of how many you allowed once you got called up to double A, which usually it's the other way around, right? I mean, you get up to double A, the guys are better hitters, they have a better idea of what you're going to throw, but the home run to fly ball rate dropped by more than a third from 19% to 6%, or just for the basic counting stat, 13 home runs in 60 innings in high A versus just 3 home runs in nearly 40 innings in double A. What would you attribute that to? Is that using the other pitches? Is it because it's harder to go yard off the breaking balls, trusting it more? How are you able to keep the ball in the yard a bit better, or a lot better, in
Yeah.
double A?
Yeah. I mean, I'd definitely say like using the other pitches as well. But I mean, obviously another thing is command. So if you look, I'd say probably in high A, what was it, 13 homers in
Yeah.
high A? I would say probably like 11 of them were off my fastball,
Mm-hmm.
probably 10 or 11. And that's supposed to be my best pitch. So obviously, I'm just not locating it well enough. I kind of ran into a point in the season in high A where I was just leaving everything up
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't getting the fastball down. So their eye level was just not changing at all. So, you see one up there where it's hard to hit sometimes, but if you're not, if the hitter is not respecting that you can go down in the zone, they're not even going to look down there.
Yeah.
So they were just all over up in the zone, middle, all that, all that good stuff. And they were just ambushing it. So, in double A, I kind of, started throwing more breaking balls, more changeups or whatever, but also I was commanding my fastball a lot better, and putting it in spots where it wasn't really going to get hit out of the park. So my like thought process was my misses, I'd rather miss in a good spot rather than back over the plate where it's going to get hit over the fence. So, that was so if I'm trying to go outside, I'd rather miss off the plate a little rather than a little to the other side, and it's just right down the middle. And that was the biggest thing for me, just better misses, and better command.
It's funny because watching back at some of your starts, and we're going to go over some of this on video on StreamYard, which people can see on YouTube, just for a few minutes to go over some of those pitches. Something that stood out to me, especially to your glove side, was that ability to nibble at the corner, or when you were just missing a little bit off the outside of the plate to a right-handed hitter, but like a good setup for the slider as well. Your fastball tends to run arm side, right? And is that something that also makes it hard when you're trying to pitch away to righties, that it might run back over the middle of the plate? Is that something that's a little bit difficult? Because sometimes it's going to run a little bit more than others, right? How do you account for that as a pitcher who gets that natural arm side run?
Yeah. It's for me, it's kind of weird because sometimes it does that. Sometimes it runs. Sometimes it has that movement. And sometimes it has like a little cut. Just, I think the way that it comes off my fingers or whatever. But a lot of times when I'm getting out to glove side and it's a good glove side pitch, then my extension is really good out here. So usually I'm not going to come off the ball like that if I'm getting it all the way out here. It'll be like usually when I miss arm side or it runs more arm side, I'm letting it go more back here to where it kind of just runs off on me. So for me, like when I'm pitching to a righty and I'm trying to go outside, and it's a good one, it's usually not going to run back. But for me, it's just the focus is on getting extended, and finding that release point. And that's kind of what you work on in the bullpen to make sure that you have that release point so it doesn't run back to the middle of the plate when you're trying to get over there.
You talk about sometimes cutting your pitch a little bit, and that's how some of the best cutters have been discovered, is kind of by accident. Have you ever thought about playing around with a cutter, or playing around with a little bit more of a riding fastball, or do you kind of like the way it is now with the way you have your heater?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the way it is now, but I'm always trying, like, just messing around during BP, just throwing a cutter, throwing whatever, and I don't know. It just hasn't been super consistent. I used to throw a cutter like in high school, but then it kind of turned into a slider, and that's where my slider is now. So
Yeah,
kind
and
of like that.
that's one of your best pitches as well. I mean, it's the fastball slider that, especially in the Cape Cod League. I mean, that's what a lot of teams were coming out there to check out, right? I mean, that slider's always been. I always get it confused. Curveball or the slider was always your better off speed pitch earlier on. Because now I would argue
Yeah,
they're both right there.
yeah.
What was your
That's
better pitch earlier on?
so early on, like in high school and going into college, I really leaned on like my curveball because, like I said, my slider was like a cutter. But when I got to college, it started turning into a slider. So I had the slider and curveball. Um, so early on, it was probably curveball, and I always liked my curveball because I feel like you know, I could command it better. It just felt more comfortable. Um, but then my junior fall at Ball State, um, we kind of just like banged the curveball, and we were just throwing the slider for like a month and a half, strictly sliders, and that's when it got really good. When I kind of was just focused on that and focused on my release point and how it's coming out of my hand, how it's coming off my fingers. And then that's kind of when it really took off. I was throwing it really well, felt really comfortable with it. Um, and so that's kind of where it's at today. And I've worked the curveball back into the mix because it's a different pitch and it's slower, and I feel like I can manipulate it enough to where it looks pretty different than the slider.
And what I saw, with you using that curveball was it seemed to be a pitch that you used effectively to steal some strikes early on as well. I mean, like a lot of guys were just spitting on that the second they saw it as a called strike in the zone. Is that a pitch that you feel like you could use a bit more to lefties since it's more vertical breaking? I know you're working on developing the changeup, and that's something that I'm sure, and we'll talk about is a point of emphasis as well. But that gives you a third look, a third speed, and a third, just profile pitch wise. Is that something that you think could end up being your third pitch as more of a slower curveball that is more vertical breaking to lefties, or do you really feel like you need to have that changeup in there as well?
I mean, yeah, I was throwing the curveball a lot to lefties this year. It's kind of a better look than the slider, where it's slider shorter and more horizontal. Where the curveball I was getting a lot of swing and misses versus lefties with that. Um, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. It had good success against lefties this year,
Yeah.
and I could see that going forward. But I really do think I need the changeup at some like if I want to be a starter for a long time. I feel like the changeup is very important, and the Marlins really wanted to get that across to me that I need a changeup, need a changeup, need a changeup. And it was just tough because like I was never throwing a changeup before. So but yeah, I've gone through a lot of grips. I feel really comfortable with one, and I'm just throwing it every day now, and it feels really good. So hoping to just keep that going, and even against righties, like changeups, you're seeing right on right changeups like crazy nowadays, and it's because they're not looking for it. It's just another trick and that you can pull out of your sleeve. So, I'm definitely want to develop the changeup for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the hardest pitch to throw for like 90% of guys, right? I mean, it seems like it's also the hardest pitch to hit. A well executed
Yeah.
changeup is absurd, but I mean that's across the board for pitchers. That's the hardest pitch to learn, right?
Yeah. From my experience, yes, for sure. And I feel like it honestly, I feel like starts at a young age because you start pitching and you want to do this, you want to throw the curveball, you want to throw the slider. So it's so natural to spin the ball like that. Whereas when it's like this all the time, spinning, 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 and then you try to learn the changeup, it's just kind of weird. Like it's not as much. I don't know. The pronation is definitely different than spinning a curveball. So I feel like for a lot of people, and for me, I guess it's just a really different feel, and it's just going to take time for
And I mean,
sure.
you've only had one professional season under your belt, and to make it up to Double A is really, really exciting, and something that I'm sure you're geared up for going into next year, right? Because I mean, you finished the year with a good body of work in Double A. It wasn't like you just got up there for one start. And now you feel like you've probably got a decent amount of momentum. Now you're starting in Double A next year, and a good start, you could find yourself in Triple A before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling heading into this new season? Obviously, you're in a new environment. You're heading over to the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I would say, from the analyst side of just looking at every farm system, there's less arms in Pittsburgh, and I think there's a pretty direct path to being able to help sooner rather than later. Obviously, getting traded at any point is an emotional and crazy
Yeah.
thing, but how excited are you for this new opportunity in an environment where they're trying to load up on pitching? I mean, again, they went after Kyle Nicolas for a reason. They needed pitchers. They needed pitchers with upside like yourself, and you're going to get every shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely exciting. When the trade first happened, I was kind of like, oh man, I don't know. Like I was getting comfortable with Miami. Like it had been a year, and I liked all the people, all the staff, all the players, and I was excited to get back to work with them. And then all of a sudden, it's just like a snap, and it's like, nope, all that's gone, and now you got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I'm definitely excited. It took some time to kind of just process what was gonna what was going on, what was gonna happen in the future. But now that I'm kind of back in a good routine where I'm just getting ready for the season, and last season was different because I didn't really know what to expect going into a year. But now, I can go into spring training at a new place and kind of know what to expect at spring training and going into a season. So it's definitely exciting. As you said, Miami's loaded with arms. So, but the Pirates, obviously they're going to have some good arms to compete with, but you control what you can control. That's it. That's all I'm trying to focus on. And just let everything take care of itself.
And one guy, though, that you do have some familiarity with, going back to the Cape Cod League, Nick Gonzalez. Have you reached out to Nick, or has Nick reached out to you since the deal? Or is there anybody else in the system you have ties to back from like Ball State, or are we starting like new kid in a new school and you don't know anybody?
No, I know a couple. Well, I haven't talked to Nick yet, but Sean Sullivan's also with the
Oh
Pirates
yeah, Sean
from
is.
the Cavaliers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've talked to him a little bit. So that's basically all I know. And I might know other people I don't really know yet though, since I haven't been down there. But yeah, I'm excited to get to know more people and new people, and just build new relationships too. So
For Pirates fans who might, not know too much about Sean Sullivan, we saw what he did in the Cape. He shoved, and he's young. He was probably one of the youngest guys in the Cape, shoving, in some of the most important games. What you saw it firsthand. You were in the bullpen with him. You're talking to him all the time. What can you tell Pirates fans a little bit about what they can expect from Sean Sullivan, who I think the guy just can pitch. Like he's just one of those dudes that's just a pitcher.
Yeah, right. He's like one of those guys that it's like, all right, he's not going to throw 100 right now, but he's just going to go out there and he's going to just pitch like exactly what you said. And he's a dog on the mound. Like he is a dog. So, it was always fun watching him pitch, and, you kind of get excited for those days where it's like, all right, we got Sully on the mound. Like he's going to go shove and it's going to be fun to watch. So, yeah, he's definitely an exciting guy to have on your side.
Yeah, what I loved about him from the broadcaster side was how quick he worked. It was just one pitch, another pitch, another pitch. Is that something you look at on the mound in terms of tempo? I know you work exclusively out of the stretch now, and I was going to ask you about that on when we get to the video on StreamYard. But is that something just to kind of keep your mechanics more under control? And on top of that, what's your kind of tempo idea when you're on the mound? Are you thinking about that at all?
A little bit. You don't really want to work too slow. You don't want to bore everybody behind you and kind of get them out of rhythm. But at the same time, it's like, all right, I got a job to do. Like, I have to focus on making the best pitch that, like, for me and for everyone else. So it's kind of like finding a happy medium. Some people work quicker than others, and I wouldn't say I don't really know how fast I work, honestly. Maybe like right in the middle. I know I'm not that fast, but I hope I'm not too slow. But yeah, I mean, it is important though to keep the fielders behind you in a rhythm.
And talking about the Pensacola team, there was a lot of talent on that ball club, from Max Meyer to Zach McCambly to, of course, Jake Eater before he went down. And then, offensively, Peyton Burdick was having a great year. Blade finished strong. But on the pitching side, and of course, Griffin Conine hitting 36 jacks last year. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun team to watch. It really was. And on the pitching side, I mean, I would put that rotation up with just about any rotation in the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I felt like every day I tuned in, even if I didn't check the probables, it was going to be worth watching, whoever was on the bump. How much did you guys I know I asked you about this in the Cape a while back about just being in a bullpen or a rotation. I guess more bullpen in the Cape where you're just surrounded by a bunch of dudes and you could just kind of pick things off each other and talk. I mean, what was that like? Did you have a similar environment in Pensacola, just having a bunch of dudes that can shove?
Yeah, definitely, dude. I mean, those guys. It was like every night. It was just like, all right, like he's gonna shove, like that's just what it is, and that's just who we were. It was like, all right, like we're gonna go, keep it a low scoring game, hopefully, and then the bullpen too. Our bullpen was nasty, and I don't know if they didn't have any Max Meyer type names back there, but those dudes were nasty and they could shove it. So it was always fun just seeing how the starters were gonna do, and then who was gonna get the ball next, and it was always fun to see who came trotting down and how he was gonna work. So it was definitely fun.
And going all the way back to Ball State, I mean, Ball State has for the school, for somewhat not the biggest school in the world compared to Vanderbilt and some others, it has produced a lot of legit talent, especially on the pitching side. I'm sure I'll forget a few, but I mean, going to Zach Plesac, but then even yourself, you got Dre Jameson. There's so many, and I'm missing a few others off the top of my head, but that I'm sure you could fill in. So many pitchers out of Ball State. What can you attribute that to? And how well are they just developing pitchers out there?
It's pretty special, honestly, when you look back at it. Obviously, Plesac's in the league now. Chase McDermott is another one that came in. So me, him, and Dre were all in the same recruiting class, and now we're all minor league first round, second round, third round. So it's pretty special. Part of it, I feel like Coach Maloney has a really good eye, I think, for people who are going to be late bloomers. He kind of sees guys with, maybe not as much muscle on them, or, kind of the tall, lanky guys that, he meets them, meets their personality, knows kind of what they're going to do, how hard they're going to work, sees how fast their arm is, whatever. And then they get there and they just develop them. So that was kind of the case with me and Chase as well. Honestly, Dre too, where we just kind of got there and came together. We all knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to go win a championship, but we also wanted to go play the next level. So, we kind of bought in and we just trusted the coaches, and what they wanted the best for us too. They wanted our coach knew my goal was 3 years and out, like 3 years and get drafted. So, he did anything he could to help me with that. And it's honestly just a lot of it is the coaches. And I had 2 pitching coaches when I was there. One is now the pitching coach at Indiana. And he helped me a lot gaining velo. I made a big jump in college. And then the one that's there now, Larry Scully, he helped me a lot with finding the zone and throwing strikes. So, I just attribute a lot of this success to all the coaches that are there.
I mean, it's amazing when you can do that with a program and identify those guys. So I would say you would call yourself a late bloomer.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I committed to Ball State, I was throwing like 84 to 86.
Wow.
So,
But
yeah.
you were playing multiple sports, right? I mean, back to high school,
Yeah.
you played basketball. Did you play football as well?
No, I didn't.
Just basketball
Yeah.
and you played with Dylan Dingler, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
So what position did you play in basketball and what position did Dingler play?
So we were both guards. I was like the shooting guard. He was like the sixth man. He was the first guy off the bench our senior year, which is crazy to say because of how good of an athlete he is. But he would just come in and just be a dog on defense, just guard the best player. And he was like a 2 or a 3 as well. But that was definitely fun in basketball senior year.
So, and you guys obviously played baseball together as well, right? I mean, that's a guy that you were pitching to in high school.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a wild, just small world type of thing where you're pitching to a guy that now ends up being a really high end prospect as well behind the dish. He had a great year, made his way to AA as well. How often do you guys keep in touch? And is that somebody that at some point you would love to potentially be able to pitch to? Who knows in what context, but it would be pretty darn cool to see.
Yeah, dude, we keep in touch a lot. He's been one of my good friends since third grade. So, we grew up together playing sports together. And he's just a great player, a great friend, great guy. So, I was excited to see that he had a really good year. It was fun to follow him. But yeah, man, it was kind of nuts when because he ended his junior season at Ohio State like on a tear. He hit like 4 homers in like the last 5 games, and then his stock just like shot up. So it was kind of nuts because we both came home after our season ended, and both of our names were just kept going up the draft boards, and we were like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like, this is actually going to happen.
And just to wrap up there, I want to talk a little bit about the draft day for those who might not have heard our first interview going back on, the Locked On Marlins podcast a while back. It's almost like 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. What was that whole draft day like for yourself? Obviously, it was a weird one in 2020, shortened draft. You had a good idea that your name was most likely going to be called, but there's always just that weird voice probably in the back of your head knowing that there's only 5 freaking rounds this year. But then also like your friends too, right? I mean, you had a lot of friends like Dylan, like others that, you want to see get selected as well. But what was that process like for yourself? And then also just, watching for some of your friends potentially falling off the board?
Yeah, it was just nerve-wracking. That's like the biggest thing I can say. The first day was only the first round. So I wasn't, I was watching it, but I wasn't like actually watching it. I was like, I'm not really expecting to go this today, but I thought Dylan might go. So that's kind of what I was watching for. He didn't. And the next day he was the first pick of the second day. So, I mean, that was fun. That was a good start to the day, kind of eased the nerves a little bit, but then it was going like my mind was going crazy just seeing all the pitcher. I'm like, oh no, like this is crazy. But finally my name was called, and obviously some of the other guys like from the Kotua team saw them get drafted. So that was always fun watching their name go up. It's like, oh, that's awesome. So it was definitely nerve-wracking, but a lot of highlights from that night for sure.
And to wrap up here before we make the quick jump to StreamYard for a few minutes, what's your biggest focus heading into 2022? And what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest focus that I was focusing on like this offseason was just staying durable the entire year. That season last year was the most I've ever thrown like in a long period of time, like throughout a season. So we were talking about my velo going up and down, up and down. My focus is just staying the same the whole year. You see you see guys in the bigs like Garrett Cole, he's throwing 97 the entire year, and it's like, all right, like I can do that for like a month, but like I want to be able to do that for the entire year like that. So, that was just my biggest focus, and working out, getting my body right, eating right, doing all that stuff. So, that's been my biggest focus, and just excited to see, how it plays out.
I am as well, man, and I know you got a lot of momentum, and Pirates fans are going to be really excited to see you throw, and are going to come to like you very quickly. Can't wait to watch, and I know it's going to be a really fun year for you. And hopefully, I mean, the good thing is the minor league side, we know when that's starting.
Right. Yeah.
But it would be nice to see you in big league camp and get an opportunity there. But
Yeah.
at least we know when you'll be pitching in the minor leagues. I will be out there to watch at some point, and we'll be obviously rooting you on along the way. But dude, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we'll make the jump to StreamYard. But again, thanks for hopping on the podcast, and we'll have to circle back during the season when you're sustaining 97. 80 innings into the season.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.